Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of where Issei became a villain and had the Omnitrix. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more information. Now let's get into part 2. Flashback. 2 months ago. The most beautiful woman in heaven, or also known as the strongest woman in heaven, is observed with a worried look before the person walking in her direction. It was impossible for her to read her heart. She had managed to infiltrate heaven without many problems. It's a pleasure to meet you, Seraphim Gabriel. I've heard from several stray demons that you're beautiful, and they're not wrong, said a voice with a mocking tone, to which the Seraphim drew a disgusted look on her face. But she has committed a great sin. After all, you don't deserve that color on your wings, he said coldly, to which the Seraphim opened her mouth and choked. Gabriel? Who are you? She asked seriously, to which the person in front of her was silent for a few seconds. I'm just a person who has seen the horrors of this world, who has seen how people like you play God, he said coldly. Gabriel, out of fear, took a step back. Gabriel, I don't know what you mean. We have helped people, she said angrily, to which the person denied with a finger. Lies after lies. I have realized that people like you have hurt innocent people who have not deserved all that suffering, he said angrily, while pointing to the Seraphim. People wanted to be loved, respected, but by your people, fallen into the darkest, and all because of you. His eyes flowed crimson blood red that made Gabriel took a step back in fear. Gabriel, that has never happened. We have never hurt innocent people. You have. She couldn't finish talking because she was interrupted by him. You're lying, he shouted angrily. Stop lying that people like you are good. You have only caused suffering and there is nothing that can fix it, he said while a crimson aura surrounded him. Gabriel. Wait, if we talk like civilized people we can help them, he said with a kind tone, but the guy only looked at her with disgust. No, it's already too late, and it's time for you to see your mistakes, he said angrily, while showing his right wrist where he selected something strange on said watch. Ghost freak, he shouted. The seraph Gabriel was scared by that creature. By instinct, she threw a spear of light at him with the intention of finishing him, but it's passed through that creature, her spear, as if nothing had happened, in that she feels like something is touching her. But more than anything it was a chill. She didn't understand what had happened. She felt afraid from that thing. Ghostly? It's time to pay for your sins, daughter of Elohim, he said angrily, as he went straight to the Gabriel seraph moth, which she could only cover with her hands. After a few seconds she opened her eyes. She could not find that creature. Besides, his presence of death had completely disappeared. Gabriel, all this was an illusion, she said confused, thinking that it was because she didn't rest from all her current work. Who said it was an illusion? I can assure you that it is not about any of that, said a voice that she heard in her thoughts, the Seraphim Gabriel, which opened her eyes in terror. Gabriel? Where are you? She asked, scared as she searched for the creature. Ghost freak. I'm here, he laughed before starting to laugh mockingly. To be clearer, I'm inside you, he said mockingly, as the seraph's hand points at her. Gabriel. What kind of monster are you? She asked with fear, but there was no answer, in that she feels like her ability to read others' heart is activated in a forced way. Most freak. Maybe I should make you see your biggest mistake, he said mockingly, while using the reflection of a window where the barely visible face of the Seraphim Gabriel could be seen. But at that some images flooded the mind of Seraphim Gabriel. Tears began to form in her eyes. A hatred in her eyes was gradually flooding in. Gabriel, this is not true. It must be a lie, she denied. She wanted to close her eyes. She refused to believe what she was seeing. Ghost freak. You think it's a fucking joke. Remember that boy Haidu, the pain he felt because of you? He said coldly. Well, the seraph wanted to fall to her knees, but the possession of Ghost Freak's bodies prevented her to do so. Gabriel? But how do I know that all this is true? She said crying, to which Ghost Freak came out of her body to see him glow a shade of red to return to his human form. Gabriel was confused by this action. The being just looked at her with cold look, where the appearance of that person was slowly changing, where she opened her eyes with terror to see the person in front of her. Long time no see, Seraphim Gabriel, he said with a dark grin on his face. Gabriel. Everything I saw must have been a lie. Again, she denied, unable to believe it, but slowly Issei approached the seraph. Issei, it's not a lie, you know it well, angel, he said with a grin, his glowing green. Gabriel. No, that's not true, she said with terror. Issei. Now I will show you your biggest sin, he said coldly, as he puts on that mask again, where his appearance changed again. Gabriel, wait, I can't allow you to destroy the lives of innocent people, she shouted, of having to stop the brown-haired boy. Issei, you turned your back on me, right? Now it's payback, no need to shout. I will just destroy everything the faction have created, not bad, right? He said coldly, as a crimson glow surrounded him. Gabriel could not help but compare that transformation to that of a vampire. He slowly approached Gabriel, which did not hesitate to attack her. Gabriel, I will stop you from destroying the peace that we have created, she angrily shouted. Issei. Come on now, women, are you serious? Peace. What peace? You destroyed my life, he said coldly, and don't say you don't know, you saw it yourself, he said coldly, before holding Seraphim Gabriel by the neck. It's a pity you won't be able to say anything, he said coldly, while Seraphim Gabriel opened her eyes in terror. Gabriel, if I tell the others what really happened, we can fix our mistakes, please, Issei-san, she said sadly, trying to reason with him. Issei, everyone is afraid of death, just like you now, he said, while showing a dark look. But don't worry, I don't intend to kill you. I will let you live to see everything that your father created crumble before you. But you won't be able to say anything to anyone since you will mostly dead body, he said coldly. End of the flashback. Gabriel. I'm so sorry, Elizabeth. This wouldn't have happened if I had trusted Hesse, Saint. She thought guiltily of what was happening. Elizabeth only observed the Gabriel seraph with a look of coldness, which slowly approached the most beautiful seraph in heaven. Elizabeth, don't forget that this was thanks to naive people like you, she said with a smile, but her lifeless eyes seeing through the soul of the seraphim. Gabriel-sama, after this the world will be a perfect place, she said, as the darkness dissipates from her eyes. Haidu residence. You can see Valerie Lucifer with a look of sadness on her face, while tears fell from her eyes for receiving news from Shimazai that there was an attack at the hands of Albedo, from where Kauki Samajima was killed. Those people she considers family were injured from the worst news, was the worst news she has received, apart from seeing how Lavinia was in a coma. Valerie, tell me it's not true, she said sadly, as her hair covers her eyes, but some could see the tears running down her face. Baroque, known as the Hellcat, was next to her, seeing her leader in such a delicate state. This was seen by Albedo, who was entering next to Ingvald, who seemed confused of what just happened. In that they see how Valerie runs out, everyone was confused by said action. Ingvald. What wrong with her? She asked with concern, to which some were confused. The only one who seemed to know what happened is Rias Gremory. Rias. It seems that Albedo attacked the fallen angels faction to the point of leaving death behind him, she said helplessly, to break bad news to Aquino, who did not seem to react to such news. Everyone present were choked, well, except for Albedo. But in that Rias continues talking about how Azazel and Penema were injured, together with the Slash Dog team. Others like Borakiel had to be put into a coma, but Koki Samajima ended up dead by an explosion at the hands of Albedo. Arthur? Damn, we thought that Albedo had not attacked, and it turns out that he had planned to destroy one of the biblical factions, he said angrily, while feeling helpless that he could not help his allies. Asia? What's going to happen now? She asked with sadness and fear, to which Rias only let out a sad sigh when she remembered some things. Rias? We will have to go to help all those who were injured, especially you, Asia, she said, since she was referring to sacred gear of one of her bishops. Asia. Of course, she said, to which the others nodded. Hiroka. The best thing will be that I stay with Valerie. I doubt she wants to see anyone else, she said seriously. Arthur? It would also be best if LaFay stays. You are one of the people closest to Valerie, he said, to which his sister was confused by said action. Albedo stood apart from the others as he raised an eyebrow with one thought in mind. Albedo? Well, that's what's next, he thought when he saw Ingvald and observed in the direction in which Valerie left. There will be a descendant of the last two mouths. He thought with an analytical look, the descendant of the original Lucifer, known as the Morning Star, that currently remained was Valerie. Lucifer, the current Sekiryuutei. The next is the descendant of the original Leviathan, sin of envy, was Ingvald Leviathan carrying the long Inosnari, Kiri, the descendants of Beelzebub and Asmodeus. There were more, or there was no one left who descended from them. Ingvald. I'm sorry, she apologized. This attracted everyone's attention without exception. I won't be able to accompany you. I have something important to do, she said with sadness that she couldn't help her friends. Many had sad looks. On the other hand, Albedo was eating calmly, but inside he was satisfied with what his apprentice had achieved. It was not long before the factions knew the true despair that DXD world shall know a new area. But they say hi to. He was walking back home, and if the moment when he, though in his mind, where he modified the watch to his liking, and if he needed more power, then he must add some changes to the Omnitrix to be able to face the top 10. Issei. I have heard from Albedo that there are the ultimate forms, or also known as the evolutionary function. He said, for that he needs some objects to have access to that function. And I know the right object to activate the ultimate power of the Omnitrix. He thought with a smile, he should just infiltrate the underworld. I need a huge source of power, and only knew one thing that will be perfect. A king piece. But I need something to balance the power that said piece gives him, so he needs a catalyst. And what better than a divine dividing gem? Issei. I have everything at hand, just need to take it, and I will be able to finish with the features, he said with a smile on his face. He was so deep in his thoughts that when crossing a street he collided with someone, to which the brown-haired boy bent his head and could only mumble something. Issei. Please don't let it be another car, he muttered under his breath. He didn't want to go back to that hospital that did too many tests on him. I'm sorry, I didn't notice where I was going, said a girl, who was lying on the ground next to him, which with a curious look observed said girl. Issei. Wait, he said to himself mentally. As he saw the girl apologizing, Issei got up with some effort but still reached out his hand to help the girl. The girl, when she saw the boy, she realized that he was the same one, to which she blushed out of shame, realizing what happened while ago. Bore him. I'm so sorry, she said with embarrassment, while bowing, drawing the attention of the people who were walking around her. Bess. It was nothing, it was just a little bump, he said as if nothing, but the orange-haired girl had another thought. Bore him. A little bump? That was literally a car, she thought in disbelief, to which Issei stared at the girl with a face of disbelief. Issei, it's okay, he said curiously, while moving his hand in front of his face to Orihim. Orihim? Yes, I'm fine, but you're sure it was nothing, she said confused, to which Issei was surprised by the words of the orange-haired girl. Issei, it's okay miss, he said walking past her, to which the orange-haired girl nodded. My name is Orihim Inoue, she said with a smile. My name is Issei. Just Issei, he said with a neutral tone, to which the two fell into an awkward silence for not having anything else to talk about. Issei. Sorry, but I need to go, he apologized, to which the girl nodded her head. Orihim. Yes, it was nice to meet you, Issei-san, she said with a smile, to which Issei nodded his head, then said goodbye to that girl. After a few minutes, Issei was thinking about the Omnitrix and its ultimate mode. Then he sighed, remembering the girl that he crossed paths with. Issei. Well, that was something, he thought without waiting for some answer, as he kept walking. With Orikamino, she was in a similar situation to Issei, and if she was embarrassed, but after a few minutes she realized that Issei was talking about the accident from a while ago, not the one from last night, she thought, as she was the center of people's attention, which caused a blush to cover her face. A few meters away from her came her friend Yuna Shijimura, who was with a confused look seeing so many people looking at her friend, Orikim, who was red as a tomato. Yuna, are you okay, Orikim? She asked worried, seeing how red her friend is. Orikim? Yes, I'm perfectly fine, she said almost quietly, as she wanted to get out of that place that was the center of attention. Iona? Okay, she said, confused by how her friend was moving her hands in a nervous way. Returning to Issei Haidu, who was with a bored look while his clone was in front of him, after a few seconds said clone transformed into Echo, where they slowly became one person again. Issei, it's time to take a vacation. Maybe it looks like the factions now if they started hunting me, he thought with a dark smile on his face. Dimensional gap. The office Ouroboros can be seen next to Ingvald Leviathan, where the dragon god of infinity was guiding the way, until she found the dragon god of dreams, where Ingvald was thinking about everything that had happened so far. The office. You keep thinking about the past, she said, catching Ingvald's attention. But I know what you're really thinking. Always in the story the good one has to suffer. They always prefer the traitor, and it seems that hasn't changed, she said, to which Ingvald lowered her head for the sadness of hearing those words. Ingvald? She didn't know what to say to Office's comment, so he just stayed silent for a few seconds. Behind them, they were followed by Valerie Lucifer, who was extremely angry. She wanted to know about that person who hurt her loved ones no matter what, even if she has to lose her life in order to get revenge. The office. We have arrived, she said calmly, before pointing straight ahead. Hey, Baka Red, as she saw a great red, apocalypse dragon coming out of the dimension. Ingvald. Unbelievable, she said. She couldn't look away from Great Red. Not for nothing was the dragon god of dreams. The office. You'd better stop looking at him. He doesn't like to be seen in such a way, she said, to which she left Ingvald confused. Ingvald? I'm so sorry, she said, embarrassed, to which Office just walked over to where Great Red is, but for some reason she could only see Office talking while Great Red was silent. The Office slowly turned to a specific direction where Ingvald was shaken by a black aura surrounding Office. The Office. Show yourself of wherever you're hiding, Valerie, she said with an expressionless tone as her voice echoed in the dimensional gap. With nothing to do, Valerie flew to her direction where it could be seen that Valerie was with her balance breaker activated. The office. I didn't ask you to follow me, and Baccarat is extremely angry for breaking my word, she said expressionlessly. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. Valerie. I want to know who Albedo is and if I have to see the past of a useless. She could not continue talking, as she felt two killer instincts. One came from Ingvald Leviathan and the other from the Apocalypse Dragon himself. The office. Baka Red says to shut up. The only useless one here is you, she said coldly, to which Valerie gritted her teeth. And he refuses to help you because you are not going to learn anything from your own mistakes, she said seriously. Valerie. I'm just telling the truth. Everyone in the factions knows he's useless, she said coldly. But suddenly a series of images begins to invade her mind. They all had something in common, and that was Issei saving her life before extracting her sacred gear by her grandfather. And all this was thanks to Great Red. Valerie? What? What was that? She said angrily. Albion? It's not a lie, Valerie. Everything he showed you is real. Every image, every memory is real. Issei saved you from a ritual to extract the divine dividing. If that continued, then you get an idea of what happens, he said, to which Valerie opens her eyes in fear. Great Red, he was saying something in a language that no one understood. Slowly a magic circle was starting to form under Valerie and Ingvald, until a pillar of light covered them. The office. Why didn't you wait for him to calm down? She said curiously. Baka Red, just because you didn't want to waste more of your precious time, she said incredulously, which left Office silent. Location. Unknown. You can see two girls who were holding their heads as they were not expecting a big surprise like this. It was nothing less than Valerie Lucifer, the descendant of Lucifer, and Ingvald Leviathan, descendant of Leviathan, who seemed confused of where they were. Slowly they hear the footsteps of the person walking in their direction, to which the two instinctively turn to look, only to see Issei Haidu walking with his gaze lowered. This caught the attention of those present. Ingvald. Hi Sama, she said in disbelief, but when she was about to approach him, something surprisingly strange happened. He just went past her as if she were a ghost. Issei. Yes, it has been boring, all these things that have happened, he said with boredom, catching the attention of the two girls. If there is no other one left, it remains only to continue with this life, he said, as he continued walking. By instinct each one followed him. And that they see how two people take Issei by the shoulders, where they put him still alley, only to observe that they were Matsuda and Motohama. Matsuda. What's up? Do you like the rumors that describe you perfectly? He said with mockery, to which Issei was silent. Motohama. What's wrong, cat, got your tongue? He said mockingly. Ingvild was angry by what those two people were saying. She thought they were good people from what she heard from several people. Clap. Clap. I told you clearly to leave the house, but it doesn't seem that you listened to me, said a voice that caught the attention of Valerie and Ingvild. I hate it, came out of the shadows with a mocking smile on his face. As he approached to say, he punched him in the stomach, which spat out saliva as it slowly fell to the ground. Die. No one would hear you, think, brother, think. They always know that the bad guy always wins, and you're just a naive idiot, he said, as he prepares to kick him. Valerie? That fucker, she said. All this time he was the good guy, she said in shock for the person she was secretly in love with. Issei. That punch tickled me, little brother, he said mockingly as he gets up from the ground. Die. Wow, brave, it doesn't fit, he said angrily, before trying to punch him again. Issei. No, brother, you know very well that you have only lived a life that is not yours, and you need your two bullies to feel all high up. It's not like that, he said mockingly. Die. Why you? He said in frustration, before punching Issei, but his blow was stopped by Issei's hand. Issei. I'm tired of pretending to be someone weak because I will show you the real suffering, he said mockingly before twisting his brother's hand, all before the sight of Matsuda and Motohama, who could not believe what they were seeing, but Issei with a grin only left looking at them as worthless things. I say. I'm annoyed by some of you, and there will be no tomorrow for you, mark my words, he said angrily, as he takes the two by the neck and lifts them up with great ease. At that moment, Ingvild could not believe what Issei said. He was just pretending to be a weak person, but the worst one that took the now information was Valerie. Tears were escaping from her eyes. Valerie. You knew about this, Albion. Answer me, Albion, she said, but he did not receive any response from her partner. Slowly several memories came to light of how Haida's lies were corrupting every person who had an interaction with him, of how Kromkroich was silently mocking him, that D was never going to be able to get stronger like his brother. There was a scene that made Ingvild want to vomit, one that also hurt her hard. Die. This is something you are never going to enjoy, he whispered, as he hugged Ingvild with a perverted look. Issei just stood watching him lying on the floor. Ingvild only saw that scene with pain, remembering how Issei entered the Juggernaut Drive, only to hurt her greatly. At that moment, the memory changes to one in particular that confused the present. In front of her was Nyx. This caught the attention of those present. Ingvild, out of fear, took a step back. A silvery glow lit up the place where they could see a strange creature. He has a humanoid appearance whose entire body is completely black, excluding his hands, which are white. It has tiny star-like white spots all over its body, giving it the appearance of a starry night sky. His eyes are red and black pupils, and his forehead has 3 horn-shaped protrusions. Nyx. Ice-kun, she said happily. Valerie couldn't believe that the person in front of her was not Albedo, but Issei Haida himself. The crimson glow lit up the place, only to reveal the red dragon Issei, which slowly approached Nyx. Issei. I told you that I would find a way to free you from this place, he said with a smile. While hugging her, Ingvild felt a pain in her heart to hear those words with that affection in them. Ingvild and Valerie realized that the hug gave Nyx was one that conveyed love and affection, while the hug I gave them was an empty one, and only made one thing clear, that he only wanted them for their bodies. Say, Nyx, I can get you out of this place. He couldn't finish speaking, seeing how Nyx shook her head. Nyx? No. If you release me, they will notice immediately. The factions, although they are blind, will not last in looking for me, and if I meet you, I will put you in a lot of danger, she said sadly, to which Issei shook his head. Issei. I don't care, you know I'm not weak and I will kill them even think about putting a hand on you, he said before hugging Nyx. Nyx, you don't have to worry about me, she said with a smile. I want you to promise me something, she said with a serious look. Issei, of course, he said with a sad look. Nyx, look for someone who loves you just like me and is always by your side, she said sadly as tears fell from her eyes. Issei, I refuse. I'm not going to keep that promise, and if I have to take you out by force, I intend to do it, he said seriously. I swear I'm going to find a way to free you without the factions intervening, he said coldly. That scene caused great pain to those present, realizing that the one who was considered their enemy was the same person with a big heart. They felt worse than garbage now. The scene changed again, but now they were in the Issei's room. He was looking at the Omnitrix with a serious look on his face. What do you plan to do now, Issei? How do you plan to free that goddess? Said a voice that the two girls recognized, just to see the little Galvin, but Valerie seemed surprised by the colors that Galvin had. His eyes were not greener, his clothes, not now, they were red. Issei, if a new enemy appears, the factions will do anything for the information of this new enemy, he said seriously, while looking directly at himself still mirror. Elvin. Interesting, but what an enemy this could be, he said curiously, to which Issei activated the Omnitrix for a few seconds and slowly searched for the alien he needed. The crimson glow surrounded him, and Vald watched that alien with fear, the same alien that had used her songs to cause great pain to Valerie, or those who were dragons. Echo negative echo, he said with a smile while creating a duplicate of himself which he ordered to follow Issei's orders. An enemy which they created themselves, one who knows their own strengths and weaknesses, he said with a grin while slowly moving the symbol on his chest to which his duplicate imitated said action. Elvin. Never in what I wear in my life could I imagine, he said with a smile on his face, watching a crimson glow light up Issei's room. When that brightness dissipated, Ingvild and Valerie could not believe what they were seeing. In front of them were two Issei, who were staring at each other's faces. Elvin. Interesting, he said with a smile. Take this boy. With this you will be able to hide the identity of him, and they will not be able to know who he really is, he said with a smile, while handing over a kind of mask. Alvin, it's the plasma displacement mask, is an object that allows the user to temporarily transform into the person he wants, he said with a smile. But I programmed it so that the person wearing it takes my human appearance, he said with a smile, to which the duplicate of his aide took it in his hands and slowly put it on his face. Alvin. It can be said that my human part has been reborn. The factions are going to tremble before this new enemy, he said, while starting to laugh like a mad scientist. Ingvild. This can't be true, she screamed, unable to believe what she was seeing. Valerie also refused all this. Her enemy was the same person who helped them in the past, all with the goal of freeing Nyx from her prison, or that's what they both thought. Issei. Now I will show the factions the wrath of the ultimate Sekiryuutei, he said coldly. Albedo. We are going to correct the mistakes of what provoke their own decisions, he said coldly. Issei. To be the most detestable beings, they have to suffer in the worst way, he said coldly. Albedo. And they take what they want by force and use humanity as simple sheep for the slaughterhouse, he said coldly, while putting on an angry look. Issei. I must say that the supernatural world is a depressing sight, but without those beings a great future will be able to dazzle, he said with a smile on his face. Albedo. Supernatural beings are only afraid of losing their current life, he said with a smile. Albedo and Issei fist bump each other. Issei. I will use this power to impart the anger I have inside for everything I have suffered, and one by one it will pay off slowly, he said, with a sinister grin. The looks of disbelief and terror of Envold Leviathan and Valerie Lucifer were a true poem of terror. Neither of them could believe what they were seeing. The one who risked saving them, protecting them, and taking care of them from the shadows was the new enemy of the factions. They did not know what to think, but before they could say anything, they saw how Issei faced Gabriel. The worst of all is that the Seraphim knew the truth, but could not say a word, but in that they observed a girl facing Issei. But in that instant each one saw how Issei turned into a kind of mummy. Ingvild, what is he planning to do? She wondered to herself, since both Ingvild and Valerie had never seen that transformation or fraud against it. Valerie? He's not fighting seriously. At least he has something planned. She thought, seeing how the girl trusted herself, and went straight to Issei only to be wrapped in Issei's bandages in the end. They watched helplessly as Issei had that girl tied up, but they had a bad feeling about what Issei had planned. Issei. It seems that you are not that strong, angel, but you will be useful to me in my upcoming plans, he said with a smile, to which she looked at him with an angry look on her face. I'm not going to cooperate with cruel people like you. Nothing in this world will force me to join you, she said with a determined look on her face, to which the mummy just shook her head. Issei, if I want to prove something, we'll see if it's true, he said calmly. They say that power tends to corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, he said while his chest uncovered, letting something show that the angel felt a chill because of what was in the chest of the mummy. What is that? She said with fear, as she felt how her body began to tremble as she got closer to that strange diamond. Issei, I present to you the Kerosium, he said happily. In humans it can cause great mutations. We will see what happens with a supernatural being like you, he said calmly. Albedo only observed how that girl was a victim of that power which began to scream in pain. The girl's wings began to take on a dark color, made of pure dark energy. The girl's eyes were turning a dark color. Ingvild. What kind of power is this? She said scared, while she felt her feet trembling before the danger of that monster Issei had transformed. The girl slowly fell to the ground while screaming in pain and holding her head. Valerie just watched all this with fear, but they were more struck by how something was falling from one of the alarms in Gabriel's office slowly until it separated from the alarm. The creature emitted a crimson glow until another Issei was seen, to which Issei took off his mask, looking at with a look of coldness implying that this alien was the duplicate of Issei. Issei, you did your job of modifying the alarms, he said coldly to Albedo. Albedo, I finished recently. They have the same functions, but they are not going to detect anything against our new ally, he said calmly, which confused Ingvild. Ingvild? What do you mean by a new ally? She asked Valerie, who didn't know what to answer to that question. Slowly they saw the female angel who tried to kill Issei. Her blue eyes were now purple without pupils. They were completely dark purple. Wings similar to those of a fallen angel came out of her back, only this time it was only one pair instead of the two pairs that the girl had. When the girl saw Issei, she knelt down, which left Ingvild and Valerie confused, since recently the girl wanted to kill Issei. I'm sorry for trying to kill you. It was an idiot to kill the savior of this world, she said with shame, to which Valerie opened her eyes in fear and Ingvild shook her head as she got an idea of what happened. Valerie, don't tell me he made her his slave, she said scared, seeing that girl who was defending the Seraphim Gabriel on her knees before the wielder of the Omnitrix. Albedo. Apparently, the girl does not show great signs of radiation before the Kerosium, he said calmly, while observing the girl's wings of darkness. Issei. Yes. But I think we must hide her corruption, since someone near here can feel her corrupted aura, he said coldly. The girl, hearing those words, felt guilty for being able to bring problems to her new master, to which quickly the wings fade, and her eyes turned back to a shade of blue. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to bring you problems, she said with disappointment of herself, to which Issei only looked at her with sigh. Issei, it doesn't matter, but I want you to introduce yourself to me, he said coldly, to which the girl nodded her head. Of course, master. My name is Elizabeth Lyons, the Three of Hearts of the Gabriel Seraph, she said coldly and disgustedly. She was angry that she had to call the Gabriel Seraph as her leader. She just wanted to say to be her leader. Valerie. What form of power is this? She said, afraid of fighting with that monster, watching as Elizabeth put on a smile of complete adoration to her master, with the mission of collecting information from every important person in heaven or bases that were important for the angels. Slowly, the scene changed again. Now it showed a beautiful place which the two recognized. That place was none other than Olympus before being attacked by Issei Heidu. Slowly, they heard the footsteps of the soldiers marching in a specific direction. The two did not hesitate to follow him. In the end, they saw how a being made green-blue diamond calmly walked down the main street without any problems. Both Ingvild and Valerie recognized it as albedo. That means that Issei was missing. They did not understand why all this was being shown to them. Albedo. How pathetic, they only send the reinforcements. Is that maybe their gods are afraid of me? He said with a grin, which annoyed the soldiers to speak badly about them. Soldier, don't believe the big monster thing, you are nothing to them, said a soldier in an arrogant voice, to which Valerie shook her head in disappointing. Albedo. I mean, in that case you have to have a blind faith in them, and therefore I will show you their mistakes, he said before hitting the ground with his fist. This attracted everyone's attention. Both Ingvild and Valerie remembered how the Olympus was left, which was buried in diamond, to which they realized that the cause was in front of them. The scene changed again, where they could see a girl that they quickly recognized, which was the goddess of hunting Artemis. With her bow she was trying to push back, even being extremely strange, which has a plant-like humanoid appearance that has an overall green and black body, mostly with a head emblazoned in red flames and root-like feet, apparently holding black rocks. Their eyes are oval in shape with dots at each end with pupils that copy the shape, but are smaller. Also, his shoulders and head have red petals, and her elbows and legs have green ruffles sticking out. Artemis. I don't know what you're planning, monster. She shoot him with her bow, to which that plant-shaped being just stares at her, and that the arrow sticks in his foot. The arrow not only sticks in his foot, but also in the ground, which left her stuck in the ground. This caught Ingvald's attention. Ingvald, because he's letting himself be attacked, do you think Artemis managed to defeat him? She said curiously, while watching Valerie attentively. Valerie? No. According to Zeus, Artemis was found with serious wounds on her body as if they were cuts, she said, to which this information left Ingvild confused. Another arrow was shot, which stuck in his other foot. Slowly Artemis approached where that monster was, where she aimed at his head. Artemis. Last words, monster, she said coldly, to which he only looked her with a smile. Never let your prey talk. Kill him without hesitation, he said with a grin, which annoyed Artemis. Go to sleep, he said with mockery, which confused Artemis, before seeing the monster's hand on her face, from which a kind of green powder came out. Artemis tried to cover her nose at this, but she couldn't quite. In the end she fell to the ground, while that alien is released with great tranquility, which saw the goddess of hunting lying on the ground, before a crimson glow covers him and he turns back into Sekiryuutei, who seemed to be at ease. Issei. The Olympic faction is one of the strongest. I think it should have an infiltrator in said faction and more than one person that no one ever thought of, he said mockingly, before activating the Omnitrix and transforming back into the mummy. Don't worry, you will be a great ally by destroying the home of your dear brothers, he said madly, while exposing her to the corrosium. When he saw the girl holding her head while screaming in her sleep, he realized that it worked, but in a slow way. It seems that the strong will of the goddess was trying to fight the corrosium, which he could only wait with great tranquility. The hours passed where the girl had stopped fighting, and it seemed that a smile appeared on her face, to which she gently left her on the floor, where the sound of albedo fight against the Olympians could be heard. Issei, it may seem that I won't be able to beat those gods, I need more power, he said, frustrated of not being able to kill yet god of the Greek faction. Ingvild. Then he lied to us, she said sadly, seeing how the goddess Artemis was subjected to living a life of slavery under the orders of Sekiryuutei. Valerie could only grit her teeth in frustration. That explained the false alarms of Olympus, which somehow had to come from Artemis. After a while, smoke could be seen coming out of Olympus, hinting that the fight against albedo was over. Where Issei hoped that the goddess Artemis would wake up, she slowly began to show signs of awakening. Artemis, where am I? She asked, disorientated, while carving her eyes where she could see that it was already getting dark. She slowly turned to the sides where she saw Issei, to which she quickly remembered what had happened. With some awkwardness she approached where the Omnitrix wielder was. Artemis. I'm sorry, master, it wasn't my intention to attack you in that way, she begged, while having her head stuck on the cold floor. Please punish this sinner for trying to kill you, she said with anger towards herself for trying to kill her master. Issei, get up, he said with a framed tone, to which Artemis quickly got up. Have no time to waste, so pay close attention, he said coldly, to which Artemis nodded. You will continue acting as you normally have but I want you to report every move or important information to me, he said coldly, to which Artemis nodded. Artemis. Yes, master, I promise you that I will not fail you in this important mission, she said with a smile. She did not want to disappoint him. Issei, well, for the moment we have to hide that you work for me, he said coldly, to then transform into a diamond and leave her unconscious on the floor. Valerie could not believe that this woman who did not allow herself to be bent by any man, she begged him for his forgiveness. It seemed like a cruel nightmare what her eyes were seeing, and it was all because of the monster that they themselves created. Valerie. This can't be happening, she denied in her thoughts. There must have been a way to remove the corruption from that diamond, maybe destroying it would free Elizabeth and Artemis. Slowly, the scene was changing where you could see Issei had her with a bored look, which caught the attention of those present since Issei was observing a specific place. Slowly, the two see what Issei is observing and open their mouths in surprise. It was about Asgard, but they never received information about an attack on that faction. The most was that there were attacks near that place, so they thought it was about something else. Issei. Apparently, I've been concentrating too much on the Omnitrix that I've neglected the use of the boosted gear, he said, while looking at the glove on his left hand. Greg. Partner, what are you planning to do in this place? I doubt you are suicidal in attacking this place, he said, to which the brown-haired boy only observed a specific part of Asgard. Issei. If I need something useful in this place, for that I need someone to join me, he said calmly, while moving the dial of the Omnitrix and find the perfect alien to go unnoticed. Negative nanomach, he said with a smile, to which his size was almost 1 centimeter, and then flew in the direction of Asgard. Ingvild and Valerie watched attentively as Issei flew from one side to another, as if nothing had happened, and then Issei stopped in the air. It seemed that someone was waiting, to which Ingvild shook her head when she saw who it was. It was Gondel. Her appearance is described as a beautiful, tall and slender woman with large breasts. She has long silver hair, slightly dyed blue and purple eyes. She wears a blue officer's uniform with a skirt, black tights and blue high-heeled knee-high boots. She seemed extremely worried. Issei flew in her direction where it was hidden in her hair. They did not understand that what Issei wanted to achieve, but they knew something, and that was that Issei is up to no good. When they apparently arrived at an entertainment area, they saw how he flew out by a ray of energy from that being so small. Gondel barely managed to cover herself from that attack. She did not understand what was happening. By the time she saw in front of her, she could see a red light like from a firefly that was in front of her. Gondel, that damn thing, she said angrily, to which she sees how it moves quickly from one place to another without staying still. It will be unfair for me to fight you in this way. In that case I will fight you in this way, he said coldly, while touching the symbol of the Omnitrix, while a crimson glow covers him. He was made of crystal now. He has 3 extra crystal shards on each shoulder and arm, 1 on each knee and 2 on the sides of his head. His neck is long, his face has a magenta chin that resembles a mouth guard. He has 5 fingers on his hands. He wears a red jumpsuit with white stripes on the waist, green and white striped gauntlets on the wrists and legs, and the Omnitrix symbol is located on his right pectoral. I present to you Chroma Stone Negative, he said happily, while pointing at his face. Who will be your downfall, Valkyrie? He said this with an arrogant tone. Gandalf. You're too arrogant. Don't even think I'm going to fall that easy, she said coldly, to which Chromastone shook his head. Chromastone. Those word, first that angel, then daughter of Zeus, now you, he said, as he was referring to people who prefer to attack from a distance with magic attacks, but he didn't know that. Dondo, you must be crazy to say such a thing, coldly shouted, while several magic circles appeared behind her with the intention of killing Chromastone. But the attacks being close to Chromastone, something happened that opened the eyes of both Gondel and Ingvald and Valerie, who saw this without being able to believe it. Chromastone absorbed and returned said attack to Gondolin, who being in shock was caught off guard, to which she only tried to defend the attack, covering herself with her arms. But the impact was strong enough, but this confused those present to see that no one noticed. But in that they see how the sky was of a greenish hue, implying that they were in a pocket dimension. At what moment Issei had created it, that was Valerie Lucifer's doubt. Chromastone. You should have listened to me, but what can I expect from such prideful beings? Just because they're superior to humans, they think they can do whatever they want, he said coldly, while slowly approaching Gondel. But don't worry, your point of view of these races will change in a short time and you will understand what I'm telling you, he said with happiness, which Gondel came out of the smoke with slight injuries. Gondel. I'm not going to turn my back on my students, my friends and family, she angrily said, to which Chromastone just chuckled. Chromastone, if you say so, but in the end the prideful ones are always the first to fall, just like the morning star, he said with mockery, to which Gondel was confused by said words. Gondel? In that case, she said coldly, before launching herself to punch Issei, which corresponds with a blow similar to that of Gondel. Before said blow make contact with Issei, the ground where they were standing cracks where it looks like a crater is formed by the pressure. Chromastone. Not bad, Valkyrie, you're a great opponent, he said. Time after. Gondel trying to recover air, the fight against that being is pretty hard for her. While Chromastone negative was getting up from the ground with difficulty, Gondel for the first time had to rely on hand-to-hand fighting, knowing that her magic attacks were going to be useless. Chromastone. You are the first one who takes me these limits, not for nothing are you strong, he praised the Valkyrie, who was trying to move, but was already about to lose consciousness. You will be different from my allies, he said, as his arm begins to glow. The which Gondel quickly places a magical barrier while preparing for the imminent attack, but in that she sees as Chromastone approaches her only to see a light. Chromastone generated light to blind Gondel, who was trying to regain his sight. Issei took advantage of this to change his transformation and become a mummy, where he quickly entangled Gondel and used corrodium. Thanks to Gondel's tiredness, it was easier to expose her to corrodium because of her low resistance. Issei. Don't worry, in a very short time you will be reborn as one of my followers, he told her. Gondel. You're a fucking mad, she said panting, as she tried to resist that strange feeling, but the struggle was in vain. A magic circle appeared next to Issei. This left those present with doubt, since the magic circle did not have the symbol of the Sekiryuutei, or any clan that they know. Issei. Let's start with the attack on Asgard, he said coldly. He did not take his gaze off Gondel, mostly because he was going to catch him off guard. Time after. The Omnitrix began to glow, where Issei returned to his human form, where he fell silent to the ground. Gondel, to which he was unconscious, Issei just lay down on the ground with a smile on his face. Greg. It seems that you are overconfident when using Chromastone, he said mockingly, to which the brunette was silent for a few seconds. Issei. Maybe, but I wanted to know what happened if I fought on equal footing with the enemy, he said wearily. Greg. Fair, but you should keep in mind that when doing so, you should not trust yourself at all, he scolded his host. Issei. I know, but putting all this aside, the world is slowly starting to change, and I will see how a new world rises, he said with a smile. There are humans who also deserve to suffer for being so selfish by believing themselves superior, he said coldly, since he had a goal to free the world from all evil even if they were also of his own race. Greg, you will have many enemies, partner, he said seriously. They say, yes, those people will be those idiots demons of the council. I don't understand why the current mass let themselves be commanded by some old bags. It seems that they are just more pawns, he said coldly. Let's not talk about the ones from the Vatican, but just for saying that this is fine, God will reward them. Don't forget that the devil was an angel, an archangel before, he said mockingly. Of the fallen angels, they must have a hard hand with their subordinates. We have an example and don't say no. He gave his point of view to his companion, Greg. Understood, partner, but you must also rest. That may be an oversight on your part, as your confidence can become a double-edged sword. he said, to which Issei nodded his head. After a few minutes, Gondal was seen to get up from the ground with difficulty, while she looked up Issei sleeping peacefully. Instead of wanting to attack or kill him, she approached Issei and held his head gently, put it slowly in her lap. This left Engvold and Valerie speechless. They couldn't believe what they were seeing, even though she was brainwashed. But watching her do this was completely different. Gondal, sorry master for attacking you in this way, I was blind, she said, while touching Issei's hair. It seems that a good time passed where both Issei and Gondal were, in which Gondal herself shared an important information with Issei, which attracted all his attention. Issei. So you are choosing me now, he said, to which Gondal nodded his head. Gondal? That's right, master. In this way to be able to forge a Valendra in order to face the gods, she said, to which he attracted the attention of Issei by these words. I will be able to transform myself into a weapon that is more suited to the human with whom I have decided to forge a Valendra. Once the Valendra is completed, the resulting weapon or divine object will allow the human to fight, unleashing his full potential. This left Issei surprised by these words, which only chuckled. Issei, someone else knows about such magic, he said curiously. Only 12 other Valkyries, but currently each of them has not decided to choose a champion, she said, to which Valerie was surprised. Issei. If this is the way things are, it's better to have you as my Valendra, he said, while stroking Gondal's cheek, at which she blushes. After that scene, they watch as Albedo and Issei attack each faction with the information gathered from Gondal, Artemis, and Elizabeth. He kept resting, but Ingvald felt a little upset to see Issei so close with that girl with orange hair, but Valerie was amused by the embarrassing scene she saw of Issei with Oricum. At that the scene changes, only to see that they were lying on a red floor, where you can see looking them with his typical expressionless gaze. Office. Apparently they've finished seeing the truth, or am I wrong? He asked, to which they both shook their heads. Ingvild? Office, we must alert the factions of what's going on, she said, to which Office looked at them for a moment. Office, I'm sorry, but nothing can be done, Baccarat. I let you see the truth in exchange for you not saying anything, she said, to which Ingvald looked down sadly. Valerie. Maybe her, but I never promised him, she said coldly, to which Office looked at her with an angry look on her face. The Office? You'd better keep quiet, or you'll have serious problems, she said coldly, to which Valerie stared at her with a challenging look. Valerie? I'm sorry, Office, but Issei is killing innocent people just for revenge, she said coldly, to which Office looked her for a few moments. Office. I know, but the faction leaders are coming to an end, she said coldly. Valerie, are you not thinking of helping all of us? She said incredulously in her words. Office. That's right, I'm not going to help in this war that has already been lost since the beginning, she said coldly. Ingvild. Please let us warn the factions, maybe with your help we can fix things with Sama, she said with sadness of losing Sama. The Office? No, that's my answer, she said with her expressionless tone. As you come to your senses, but you will only be hypocrites for thinking that ice is controlled by the clock or by the galvan. You will try to repair something that never existed between you, she said coldly, to which Ingvald looked away. Valerie? I don't care, so I'll tell the truth to everyone, she said, to invoke the divine dividing balance breaker and fly away. The Office? Idiot, she whispered softly, without anyone noticing. The great red eyes flashed for a moment. Ingvald? Then what can I do? She said, to which Office looked at her intently for a few seconds. The Office? I'm going to ask you something serious, and I want you to answer in all honesty, she said seriously, to which Ingvald slowly nodded her head. If you could choose to be free again, untethered to him, Crom Crutchwielder, would you accept it? She asked her, which Ingvald does not hesitate to answer that question. Ingvald? Yes, I want to be free. I don't want to be near him anymore. I just want to be by Issei's side, she said sadly, as tears fell from her eyes. Ophis slowly walked to where she is, and with his right hand extended it to his chest. Slowly Ingvild felt something coming out of her soul. Slowly Ophis retracts her little hand, where a golden glow illuminated her hand. At the end it could be seen that Arfs had Ingvald's queen piece in his hand. But Valerie, Lucifer. You could see the aforementioned one flying quickly. Slowly an exit was forming in front of her where Valerie did not hesitate to enter, not knowing what awaits her. Valerie? At least I managed to get out of the dimensional gap, now I must alert the leaders. She thought, but you could tell the sadness in his eyes. Slowly she started walking where she realized that she was not in Qua, but at that a blue arrow passed next to her head where Valerie looked at her with open eyes, where he directed her attention to behind her. The person who was behind her was the goddess Artemis. Apparently she was not alone. To the right side of Artemis was Elizabeth Lyons, the three of hearts of the seraph Gabriel. To the left side of Artemis was the Gondel herself. Valerie. What are you guys doing here? She asked calmly, trying to go unnoticed. Gondel. Stop, Hakuryuaku. We all buried ourselves here that you saw eyes Sama's past. She said coldly. Valerie was shocked by those words. At what moment they had found out. Valerie. How do they know that? She asked in disbelief. Artemis? So you haven't noticed? She said with mockery. You were sent to the future at this time. She said with mockery, which Valerie opened her eyes with surprise. Elizabeth? You wonder how Great Red he sent you here to try to keep you quiet about Issei's plans. She said with a smile. Valerie. If I was sent to the future, that means that I couldn't believe what she was hearing. Donald. I saw my found out thanks to Office who warned him of everything that happened and sent us to deal with you. She said calmly, which Valerie could only do one thing and that was to fight against the present. Valerie. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to keep quiet. It's just that maybe you can't open your eyes, you're being controlled by him. She said coldly. Artemis. You better shut up, you descendant of Lucifer, this place will be your grave. She said, while letting out her divine aura. Valerie. Just answer me this. Why did Great Red or Office Warner say about this? She asked seriously. This caused the three of them to look at each other for a while before they started laughing. Elizabeth. He didn't tell you everything, she said mockingly, which left Valerie confused. Donald. It is that with the power of Office, the flesh and blood of Great Red was made into another dragon body with a humanoid shape. He said mockingly. Artemis. In short, a forbidden existence. You think that they will turn their backs on you just for doing something that goes against you? She said coldly. Valerie Lucifer, on the one hand I was surprised by such information, but on the other hand, she was terrified to know what it means for the alliance between factions. The others had to know what's going on, and she's not going to give up for the world. Valerie, in that case I have no choice but to fight against you. He said seriously, while the wings of the divine dividing glowed an intense blue color, which was reciprocated by the three women who were in front of Valerie. The first was Elizabeth, where her wings slowly disappear and some made of darkness come out. From her eyes they turn a dark purple color. From the side of Gondel her power is slowly being corrupted, where small black rays come out, and a crazy smile forms on his face. The last one is Artemis, who unleashes her divine aura that was slowly turning a purple color. For a few moments her eyes turn a purple color before becoming blue again. Albion. You will have a difficult fight. The best you can do will be to survive, he mentally said to his carrier, to which she gritted her teeth knowing that he was right. Artemis at that moment attacked Valerie, who had to quickly dodge that arrow, but a small cut was made on her cheek when she failed to dodge the arrow correctly. Valerie. TCH. Maybe it seems that they are not going to leave me alone, she said seriously, and then said a few words. Balance breaker, he said in a serious voice. Vanishing dragon balance breaker. Valerie was covered by her balance breaker. Bondo quickly started moving back and forth. She knew that using her spells was going to prove difficult, but she still had her magic to seal. But she wanted to give false hope to the descendant of Lucifer. Elizabeth quickly created a spear of darkness with which to attack Valerie, who could barely dodge the thrusts of that spear. Divide, divide, divide. Her sacred gear began to divide the energy of the spear until it disappeared from Elizabeth's hands, to which Valerie did not miss the opportunity. With her right hand she gave a hook to Elizabeth's stomach, which spat saliva when she didn't see that coming, but when she was thrown back you could see how a small smile was drawn on her face. The next to attack her was Gondel, who appears in front of Valerie, where the aforementioned opens her eyes in surprise when she lets down her guard. Damn it! She thought as she received each of Gondel's blows that were slowly breaking her armor. Divide? It was hard for her to divide the magic that was embedded in those attacks, to which Valerie quickly rose into the air, trying to catch his breath after those attacks he received. Donnell only observes coldly as Valerie moves away from her, to which she directs her gaze to Elizabeth, where she could see her get up with some difficulty since that blow did cause damage. Elizabeth. Idiot Lucifer, just like your great-grandfather, you will see what I can do, she said furiously. One of Elizabeth's wings started to deform for a few minutes until it turned back into that of an angel. This left Valerie dumbfounded. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She seemed to be a Nephilim, half angel and devil. Elizabeth. Let's see what happens now, she said with a mocking tone before disappearing in front of Valerie's sight. Elizabeth appeared on top of her where she gave her an axe kick which sent her to the ground where the helmet was broken by the force of Elizabeth's kick. In that Elizabeth lets herself fall where she threw a strong punch in her stomach where Elizabeth only spat blood, but I didn't stop there. Elizabeth caused wounds with her light, and with attacks of darkness, there would be more of those wounds. Valerie, before losing consciousness, could see Elizabeth's fist go directly to her face, to which later everything completely went black, giving a sign that she had been defeated. Elizabeth with some tiredness returned to normal, where slowly her wing of darkness disappears, but is held by Gondola. But Artemis slowly approaches where Valerie is with some wounds, slowly pulls a phoenix tear from her clothes, in addition to some spores that Issei left her in case of emergency. Bundle. I don't understand why Artemis Dano cures her, he said, while holding Elizabeth. Artemis. So that her body cannot expel the toxin that was poured into her body, she said calmly, as she opens the vial of spores and puts it near Valerie's nose, and dropping the contents of the phoenix tear into Valerie's wounds. I'm Skip. Valerie was waking up after that fight where she realized that it was already night. Besides that she was still inside the crater where she was defeated, which she got up with difficulty. Valerie. It looks like they didn't manage to kill me, she thought with relief, then turned to the sides and didn't see any sign of the three girls who tried to kill her. Albion, can you tell me what happened? She said, but she didn't receive any response from Albion. She tried to talk to him, but she seemed not to respond to her call, to which she got scared, but it seemed that the divine dividing worked without Albion, but at that she feels a strange sensation in his body. She felt that her power had had a great increase in her. She slowly started walking until she saw one of the gems that came off her armor. Thanks to the reflection of the moon, she was able to see her reflection. Valerie, what is this strange feeling inside of me? She asked herself, scared, but in that she saw how her reflection drew a smile, to which she let go out of fear. You don't know what this is, it's your power that has been enhanced, said a voice, to which Valerie turned to the sides, while looking for who that voice came from. Valerie. Come out from wherever you're hiding. What do you mean my power was enhanced? She asked with anger, which she saw in all directions. There's no point looking for me, after all I've always been the closest to you, said the voice again, which left Valerie confused. Valerie, stop playing with me, she said coldly. She's scared inside that she won't be able to see her enemy. I speak seriously, after all I am you, said the voice, to which Valerie opened her eyes in fear, slowly feels as something covers her hands. It was the same dark magic she saw Elizabeth use, but since she could use it, he didn't understand what just happened. Easy on your little head, Elizabeth was entering dark magic from which she obtained from the corrodium, and you must get an idea of what's going on, said, to which Valerie opened her eyes in fear. Valerie. No. No, no. No. This must be a nightmare. She refused to believe what is happening. Yes, you were already corrupted, but I'm letting you live the last minutes my old self, she said mockingly. And by that I mean you, she said mockingly. Valerie tried to move her hand, but for some reason it was hard for her to even move his fingers. The horror was drawn on his face where tears escaped from his eyes. You can't move your body freely, she said with mockery. You feel humiliated, descendant of Lucifer. That will be your punishment for being so cruel to Ai-sama, she said with longing to serve Issei. Valerie, don't do it, she said with fear. I must assume that you are me now, she said with sadness, seeing how it started to glow. Yes and no, but don't worry, in a short time you will see that we will be happy to serve our master, she said before a black aura leaves Valerie. Her eyes were turning a purple color, and a small laugh could be heard rising in tone that eventually turned into a laugh. Slowly, Valerie approached one of the spheres of the divine dividing lying on the ground where she bent down and took it gently. Valerie, it will be a great offering to Ai-sama in the end if I was an idiot to believe in the features, but I thank Elizabeth for opening my eyes, she said happily, while a magic circle was drawn on her feet and slowly disappears without erasing that smile of happiness. 2 days earlier, the office was coming out of the dimensional gap next to Ingvald. The latter seemed extremely worried about whether anyone would notice her aura, but it was a relief that no one in the Hayata mansion was present. The office. Things will be complicated for Ice, she said with her usual expressionless tone. Ingvald? But? What's the matter with the factions? She said doubtfully, but didn't answer, and that silence was the only more than enough answer for Ingvald. Please, Valerie, warn the factions, she said to herself mentally, since she couldn't tell anyone without making Office suspicious. That shows how the door was opened where Issei Hayato entered with a look of boredom on his face. When Ingvald saw him, she didn't know what to think. On one side there was the person who suffered because of the factions, and on the other side, there was the sworn judge of each faction regardless of race. Issei just walked past Ingvald without giving much importance to the look of this. Ingvald. Thank you, Office, for everything, but I need to go to my room to think things over, she said with frustration of not being able to do anything, to which Office nodded her head. Unbeknownst to Ingvald, a snake was entering her shadow. For some reason felt that she must be careful of Ingvald, that she does not reveal the truth of who Albedo really is. The office. The end is near, now I need to talk to about Valerie, she said to herself, as she walked in the direction where Issei left. But Issei Hayato, he met with a bored look. He didn't know what to do on his vacation, so he had to get away from the attention of the factions. Issei, what can I do now? He wondered mentally. He needed the factions to keep the pressure on so he could free Nyx. Greg, your soldiers have managed to weaken the factions, but I feel that you lack more allies in the other factions, he said in the mind of his bearer, since the demons, fallen angels, the Hindu faction, among other factions, are missing. Issei. I know Drake, but I don't know many of the other factions. I think it will be best to go with a different point to this war, he said coldly. The office. Maybe I can help you, she said, drawing the attention of Issei, where he turned slowly to see Office walking in his direction. Issei. No, since the factions may look for a way to infiltrate, he said, to which Office stared at him for a moment. The office. What do you think about using a person close to the ex-leader of the phone? This caught the attention of Issei, who raised an eyebrow out of curiosity. Issei. The only people I know are the other cadres or the descendant of Lucifer, he said coldly, to which Issei opened his eyes in surprise to see how Ophis nodded. Ophis. Exactly. Right now she is in the future, but with a little change she can be a great ally, she said with a sinister little smile on her face. Issei. Who knew that you would be so cruel to your own friends? He asked with a sinister tone, to which Ophis looked at him coldly, which frightened Issei. Slowly several holograms made of darkness appeared on the kitchen table, hinting that Ophis had created them, but Issei was able to recognize all 6 holograms. The first is Gondal, the second is Artemis, the third is Elizabeth Lyons, the fourth is Valerie Lucifer, the fifth is Athena, and the last is Ingvald Leviathan. Office. Athena suspects that Albedo and you acted in their first fight, she said coldly. Issei. Are you sure? He asked doubtfully. The office. What I've heard are rumors, she said, to which Issei just stood thinking for a moment. Issei. The rumors always have some reason, so I must join her to my team, or else I will have to silence her forever, he said coldly. But now because to unite the 2 descendants. he said with a raised eyebrow. The office. It will be a serious blow to the morale of everyone who is close to them, and don't forget that one of them is more dangerous because of her sacred gear, she said seriously, to which could only nod reluctantly since office was damn right. I can't argue anything with you, he said coldly, but approaching Ingvile brought back bad memories. The best thing was to think about what to do. He still had time to carry out his plan. The office. Also with Baka read, and I told everything to Ingvile and Valerie whose albedo really is, she said coldly, to which Issei opened his eyes and choked. Issei, you what damn office? He said with anger for the stupid thing that office did, which only office gave him the sign of peace with her little fingers. If Ingvile is here, it's that she hasn't told anyone, he said with relief. But what about Valerie? He said seriously. The office? I'm moving to the future, more specifically it's going to appear in 2 days, she said calmly, which Issei only shook his head. Issei, if you know about me, you will be able to counter the Omnitrix. It will be best to send other people to recruit them on my behalf, he said annoyingly. Issei, at that time, was dedicated to planning to recruit 2 people. One of them is Valerie, Lucifer and Athena, but the only person close to her is Artemis, so he had to trust her. Valerie could be annoying, mostly for carrying the rival of drag, and the best thing was to send his 3 slaves to avoid problems. The office. How about slowly corrupting Athena? In this way no one will suspect her little personality change, she said, to which Issei thought about that for a moment. Issei, it would be a good idea, but the corrodium should still be added as a gift and given to Artemis. If it is true that she suspects me, I doubt she will accept it from me, she said, to which office support that idea? The which Issei began to walk slowly to the training room of the Haida residence that was underground. Upon arriving at said room, he observed the Omnitrix for a few moments before closing his eyes. Issei, I hate them with all my being, he said angrily, while in his left hand slowly manifests the boosted gear. I want so badly to kill them, each one will pay for the sin of underestimating a matchless enemy, he said coldly. Slowly a red aura began to surround Issei that was slowly increasing. Issei. Booster gear scale male, he said seriously. At that moment I hear Drake's voice. Welsh Dragon, Balance Breaker. The boosted gear's Balance Breaker armor completely covered Issei. Issei. It seems that the boosted gear can improve even more without forgetting my ace up my sleeve, he said coldly, slowly threw a blow, which felt that the barrier covering the room cracked by his blow. Then he put that thought aside. He slowly take the gem from his chest where he do not hesitate to tear it off. When he saw it in his hands, I draw a smile on his face. Then he took an area of the armor that covered his arm and imitated the same action that he did with the gem. After that, his balance breaker disappears where he saw the 2 materials with great tranquility. Then he directed his gaze to the Omnitrix where he was looking for Mummy. When he found it, I don't doubt it twice, and it transformed into him. I say, and if I'm going to need to bring the boosted gear gem closer into the corrosium, he said calmly, while holding said gem in his hands, he would slowly have his chest. Slowly the emerald gem turned a bright purple color where Issei felt that it would be enough to take it away from his chest and see his masterpiece in his hands. Best, some details are missing, but I feel that I will be able to create a beautiful work of art, he said with a smile, while moving the dial of the Omnitrix that was on his shoulder. For a few moments he created a necklace next to some earrings, where he could only smile when he saw his masterpiece. But now something was missing to hide the aura of corruption they gave off. He could only sigh heavily for forgetting that small detail, so he turned into chromastone negative to absorb a large part, but leaving enough that no one would notice that they were not what they seemed. When he returned to his humanoid form he just smiled, slowly levitated them to where a small jewelry box appeared. They say, women's best friends are diamonds, he said with irony. This will help Athena see how bad the world is, he said seriously. It was a small sacrifice, but if with that he could make Athena's eyes open to join him, he was willing to do whatever it took. The magic circle appeared in his ear where Issei heard the voice of Artemis, and could only say a few words. Issei. Artemis, I have a gift for your younger sister Athena, he said with a smile as he seized the jewelry box floating in front of him. Issei had forgotten a few things, and that was that the aura of the corrodium had seeped into the entire mansion from the blow he threw in the training room that cracked the barrier that covered said place. The aura of the corrodium slowly began to spread all over the place slowly, but that at the moment didn't have Issei worried if he had more important things to do. Meanwhile, Bonjour was next to Elizabeth in the Fallen Angels faction, helping all the people who were injured. Rose had a look of sadness to see all the people who died where she was receiving support from her grandmother. Rose was? I can't believe that monster was capable of killing innocent people, she said to her grandmother with a look of helplessness. Gondo? I know Rose, she said with a sad look at seeing all the dead people. How dare you insult my master? She thought with annoyance, but she had to keep pretending to support the factions. Sirzex Lucifer was seeing the buildings completely destroyed by the attacks of that alien. He was looking for some clue that would help them locate him, but they couldn't find anything besides the crater where the explosion was. He was not the only one who was there. Other leaders such as Michael, Odin, Isaka and Al Mentholt Karnstein were checking the perimeter to be able to locate some trace of that being, but it seems that their efforts are in vain. Sirzicious. This step we will not be able to get out of Albedo's attack unscathed, he said seriously, seeing how the Fallen Angels faction ended up. Graphia? And how do you plan to end it? He asked with her usual tone, but you could tell the curiosity in his tone of voice. Sirzicious. I'm going to give in to Issei Heida's demand, if with that we can stop Albedo, he said, to which Graphia was incredulous from what was said by her king and husband. Graphia didn't know what to say. Dai Heida's brother was the solution to her problems, and she knew that Albedo's information was extremely important, or rather it was life or death. On the other hand, Elizabeth was healing all the people, but she did it without giving much importance. But she had to appear a look of sadness and concern for the look she received from Griselda Quarto. Griselda, take a break, Elizabeth, you haven't rested from healing all these people. Watching the girl with concern. Elizabeth. Don't worry, you know that I don't mind helping others above me, she said with a sweet smile, which I have to say so that no one suspects me. She thought with annoyance. On the other hand, one could observe Shemisai with a look of helplessness when he saw how the people he had to protect had been injured or are dead because they did not know how to react in time. Each of the factions were extremely damaged, their soldiers were injured physically or mentally. There were not many ways out, and one of them is Issei Hadu. With him they could defeat their current enemy. The next day, many people had not slept in order to help the fallen angels, but in another place, more specifically in Olympus, Zeus could be seen with a serious look on his face. Zeus. You know Hermes, maybe it looks like we're running out of options, he said, to which Hermes looks up in surprise. That brat of the Sekiryuutei has us in his hands, he said, before laughing with a bitter laugh. Hermes? I know, father, but what do you think we can do now? He said seriously. Zeus, I want you to go with some soldiers and leaders to Nyx, he said, but if that saves his people, he was willing to pay such a price. Hermes? That will be done, he said, to which he quietly withdrew, leaving Zeus completely alone. Zeus, I just hope I don't make a mistake, he said with sadness of having to give in to a demand that could bring serious consequences. Elsewhere, more specifically in the temple of Athena, the goddess Athena could be seen with a look of total concentration while watching several times the repetition of Issei Heida's fight against this Albedo. But there was nothing out of the ordinary, only that they attacked each other to kill. Athena, damn, I can't find anything fake in these videos, she said in frustration before massaging the bridge of her nose. She quickly hides what she is doing mainly so as not to arouse suspicion or distrust with some people, and that they knock on the door. Athena, I need to talk to you, said a voice on the other side of the door, which Athena heard perfectly. Athena, oh sister, I'm sorry, give me a second, she said with some awkwardness, seeing that she had hidden the videos in a safe place. Athena walked to the door, where when she opened it, she was taken to see her older sister with a heavy look on her face, to which I invited her to come in. Artemis, I don't understand how you can be close to those monsters, she said with an annoyed tone, to which Athena shook her head when she knew that she was referring to men. Athena, you should look for a partner, if not always. He could not finish speaking when he saw Artemis with a glare. Artemis. Not even in my worst nightmare, but I want to consult some things with you, Athena, she said seriously, to which she attracted the attention of the goddess of wisdom. Athena. And what is it about? I ask with curiosity. Artemis. There is some mineral to create a weapon or armor very resistant to magical attacks, she said with curiosity, to which Athena was left with doubt. Athena? Yes, there are several minerals, for example, mithril, vibranium, and adamantium, she said calmly, without giving it much importance. Artemis? Seriously? She said, to which Athena nodded her head. Perhaps with these materials they can be useful to Isama. She thought with happiness to be useful to her master, Athena. Why so much interest in these materials? She asked with curiosity, to which Artemis didn't even seem nervous. Artemis. Maybe to improve my bow or my arrows, she said the obvious thing, to which Athena only shook her head at Artemis's attitude. By the way, Athena, I wanted to bring you a small gift, she said with a smile, while taking a jewelry box from among her clothes. Athena. Artemis, you shouldn't have bought it for me, she said, to which Artemis shook her head. Artemis. It was nothing, besides I feel that they will look beautiful on you, she said with a smile. But above all they will show you who to follow from now on. She thought with a small smile that Athena did not notice. Athena slowly opened the jewelry box where she could only draw a small smile, and put her hands to her mouth for the beautiful gift Artemis gave her. Athena. They are very beautiful, Artemis, she said with a smile. You shouldn't bother yourself, she said in disbelief. Artemis. It was nothing, it was just a small gift for my little sister, she said calmly. Athena slowly looked at the earrings and necklace. The earrings are beautiful, so she slowly put one on. In the end there was only the necklace left. Artemis. Let me help you, she said calmly, to which Athena nodded her head. Athena gathered up her hair, exposing her neck where Artemis fastened the necklace. For a few moments Artemis's eyes turned purple, then it will return to its original color. Without knowing it, Athena's fate was completely sealed by that necklace and earrings. There was only one thing left to do, and that was to wait. Artemis, it fits you perfectly. I knew it was an excellent gift for you, she said with a tone of happiness. Wait a little, sister. Soon you will realize that his going against Isama was your biggest mistake, she thought with that smile dark that for a few moments turned into a sinister smile. At that Athena gets up from her seat where she gives Artemis a hug. Athena? Thank you, sis, she said happily. Artemis could only reciprocate such a hug. After a moment, Artemis withdrew, saying that she had important things to do, leaving Athena alone in the room. Seeing that no one was around, she took out all the things she was previously using. Athena. Yes, it is difficult to hide this from others, but I have no evidence to blame the Sekiryuutei, she said seriously, while reviewing once again the video she managed to replicate of Tobio Ikus. The purple glow appeared on both Athena's necklace and her earrings without the goddess of wisdom noticing. At the entrance of the temple of Athena, Artemis could be seen with a smile, while whistling innocently that everything went perfectly. Artemis. Things will get good, she said in a happy voice. She still hated men, but her master's say was an exception. Moments later, all the gods of Olympus were gathered since Zeus had called each one to a meeting to discuss a topic of utmost importance. Issei. Tell me, Zeus, that you are joking, she said without being able to believe what she was hearing from her brother. Zeus. What you just heard, Nyx is going to be released, he said seriously. She is the one who can solve each of our problems, he said coldly. Hera. You're going to fall to blackmail of the Sekiryuutei just because you can't defeat this new enemy, she said incredulously, and apparently she wasn't the only one. Zeus. It's either that or more people die. As I was told by Odin, the fallen angels faction got the worst hit so far, he said before a screen is shown above him, showing Grigori's current status. Hephaestus. You're just going to give it to him as if it were nothing, he said seriously, to which more than one agreed. Zeus. Enough, but who will keep an eye on Nyx in that residence? I doubt anyone will, he said coldly, to which everyone averted their eyes, except for one person. In that he sees how a person raises his hand, this caught the attention of those present. Since it was Athena, this made Zeus raise an eyebrow. Zeus. So Athena, are you willing to keep an eye on Nyx? You know that means going to live where the Sekiryuutei, he said, to which his daughter nodded her head resolutely. For seconds after Artemis raised her hand, which left those present in doubt as to why she raised her hand. Artemis. I'm not going to leave my sister near such a disgusting being. She defended herself, to which Athena was taken back by such an act of her older sister. I'm not going to leave you alone with my master. She thought angrily with some jealousy, but hid it from those present. Athena. This way getting more evidence will be easier. She thought about making more evidence at the Hayato residence. We will see Sekiryuutei if you really are a traitor. She thought seriously. Zeus. In that case I charge you both to keep an eye on Nyx in case she tries something against us, he said seriously, to which they both nodded their heads. Athena. Don't worry, father, we are not going to fail you, she said earnestly on the task given to her by her father. The news of Nyx's release was not long in coming, but the leaders of the factions decided that it was best to hide it from some people like the anti-terrorist group DXD to avoid conflicts. Besides that, Athena and Artemis would be the two people to watch over Nyx. It was the best thing for the moment because if the other factions found out that they had given in to the Sekiryutei's demands, their reputation could take a nosedive, so all they had to do was take a chance. As for Issei, he was currently at the Hayato residence with a look of utter boredom on his vacation as the faction's enemy number one. Issei. Tomorrow is the great day to attack the Lucifer, he said with boredom, as he switched channels to the TV. On his lap was none other than Office Ouroboros eating ice cream. The office. It will be interesting to see Valerie's new attitude, she said with some interest, but Ice didn't give her much attention. I say. It doesn't matter, the factions are now taking desperate measures and all those things that don't interest me, he said indifferently. The office. Your pride, that could be your biggest mistake, she said with disinterest, to which Issei only frowned at those words. Issei, I understand, tomorrow to return to that prison that only takes away my valuable time. He meant Core Academy. But at least I will have to entertain myself, he said with a smile on his face. The office. I don't understand what you're trying to say, she said coldly, before taking the ice cream to Issei's mouth. If the factions were going to be entertained, and it wasn't going to be because of him, someone else was going to take care of the fun. Slowly Issei got up from the sofa with boredom, placing Office on the sofa much to Office's discomfort to see that no one was in the kitchen. He was going to be able to eat in peace, but he felt that someone was approaching his direction, and it was not for nothing. The person who was entering is Kuroka with a worried look on her face. Kuroka? You! She immediately pointed to Issei, which only just rolled his eyes. Haven't you seen Valerie? She said with fear of not finding the silver-haired girl. Issei? No. That was the only thing he said. This upset the Nekishu. Besides, I'm not a babysitter, and it's not even my problem for the current moment. She was annoyed by Issei's attitude towards her, so she reluctantly left the kitchen. Elsewhere, it is observed to Albedo, who was with a look of annoyance on his face while looking for something in particular, until he found the DNA of a galvanic mechamorph. He slowly took the test where the DNA moved from one side to another. Albedo. It seems that my student has yet to grow up even more. He is still a child and has no purpose to subdue this world, he said coldly, before opening the said tube and pouring it into a bucket that he had built earlier. Slowly the cube was taking a red color, but after a few seconds it took the purple color if it was difficult for him to build the object he needed. Albedo. Anger and revenge are good motives, but something like experience is missing to make him invincible, he said seriously before taking the cube in his hands. Returning with Issei Hidu. Issei was currently reviewing some notes from his notebooks, but in these he wrote with a look of total concentration. Issei. If writing this is difficult, well, no one ever said that being a bad guy was easy, he said impatiently. For a few moments he saw the Omnitrix with a confused look. Transformations last longer than the original Omnitrix, but what if you used the Volundu with the Omnitrix? He thought about it for a few moments. Maybe Gondel will allow him to use the ultimate forms while he gets the necessary materials. The best thing was not to get your hopes up. Maybe only aliens can unleash unparalleled power. But maybe there was that little quality. He went back to his notes, where he just rewrote an idea that he had in mind. In Ingvild's room, the aforementioned was deep in her thoughts or imagining scenarios where Issei killed everyone with a bloodthirsty look drawn on his face. Ingvild. It doesn't help. If I get too depressed, I'll end up imagining something much worse, she said sadly. At least she was grateful to Issei for curing her from her illness. But oh boy, how wrong she is. If Albedo that the factions were chasing was a simple clone, which was Issei's true potential, maybe Nyx could help him come to his senses. But that little thought hurt her as if a spear of light was buried in her heart. Ingvild. It hurts a lot because I couldn't tell the factions who Albedo really is, she said sadly. She really didn't want to miss the opportunity for Issei to forgive her, if that means hiding various things from the factions. She was making illusions which could become reality in the future. Slowly, she got up from her bed where she only went to check some things in her closet. Among one of them was a particular box. She slowly took it out from among her things. But quickly her look of longing changed to one of disgust and threw it to the floor. Ingvild. That was his intention. That was his damn reason for giving me that dress, she said angrily, while two magic circles with the symbol of the Leviathan clan appear on her hands. I was just a filthy trophy for him and I fell right into his lies, she said disgustedly, before pointing to the box. That dress that was inside the box was one that Diheda gave her for a party in the underworld, where he introduced her as the queen of his peerage. But he realized that that dress was only to make her get people's attention. Slowly flames appeared in her hands and without hesitation she threw them against the box, where there was a small explosion. A part of the dress fell to the floor while it was slowly burning to ashes. Slowly, she went to her closet and she was burning all the gifts, clothes, perfumes that Diheda gave her until they ceased to exist. In the end there were only a few clothes left. Among them was her noble suit with slits, exposing her cleavage, and a short skirt. Ingvild took it in her hands and gently left it on the bed. It was the only clothes that Diheda didn't buy for her. She needed new clothes and she knew that Dai was going to get really upset with her. But now she didn't care. After all, he no longer means anything to her. She didn't want to buy anything with the money that came from Diheda. So she took a small bag of money out of a small pocket dimension. That money was the money she was given for killing rogue demons, stray demons, so it was more than enough to buy herself good clothes that didn't have Dai's approval on it. She knew that if she wore her noble attire, she would attract a lot of attention, so she only had to wear the uniform of the Qua Academy if it was going to be difficult to go unnoticed by the Gremry group, Irina Shidu, and her former entourage mates, or even the DXD group. So while she needed a good bath, she wanted to relax for a moment, so she just walked to the bathroom, leaving the mess of dresses, jewelry, and cosmetics behind. In the underworld, the current mass, along with the leader of the fallen angels, Shemihai, the leader of the angels, Michael, Yusaka the leader of the Akis, Olmundhold Karnstein the leader of the vampires, Zeus the leader of the Greek faction, along with his daughters Artemis and Athena, Odin of the Nordic faction. They are gathered to discuss a particular problem, which was the freedom of the goddess Nyx, as they had to discuss the repercussions it was going to bring just by putting her in free. Zeus. I didn't want to come to this, but you know that he is the only person who knows Albedo perfectly, he said, to which the leaders regretfully agreed. Isaka. We know, but you're going to leave her as free as if nothing, she said in disbelief, to which Zeus shook his head, which brought a sigh of relief to the leaders. Zeus. That was planned at first. More than one I protest about such an idea. But apparently 2 of my daughters decided to keep an eye on Nyx in case she tries something. 2 then point out both Athena and Artemis. Xyrophil. Good idea. But the DXD group will realize that Nyx is on the same roof as them, he said, since the Haida residence was like a home for the DXD group. Zeus. I'm not going to let her free completely. Her divinity and powers will be sealed. She will only have enough power to defend herself, he said coldly, to which everyone nodded their heads. Xerxes. Now the problem will be to find Haida since he has been missing from his home for some days. he said nervously, to which he upset those present for not knowing anything about this news. Athena. So he disappears and the fallen angel's faction is attacked. She thought with an analytical look, maybe he's the one that Amenhiled. Sorry for seeing a small flaw in this plan, but in what way are they going to explain that they are going to live at his house? She said, to which more than one came to their senses, to which everyone had to give Ilna and hold the reason. Bajuka? Maybe I have an idea to be able to go unnoticed to rather him, he said seriously. And that is that we form an alliance with him, he said with a heavy look on his face. Odin. But I don't think that for that simple reason they are going to live with the brat, he said, to which Ijuka shakes his head. Ijuka, although it hurts me to say it this way, but if the brother of Dai is engaged to several girls, we will have to commit him to doing the same with several girls of different factions, he said seriously, to which more than one could not believe it. Artemis. Fools, is this supposed to be the smartest devil in history? Pathetic, she thought angrily, but on the outside she kept her expression of not taking much importance of her. Zeus. But that idea also has flaws. To which girls are you thinking of committing? He said seriously. Of the demons it would have to be a being close to one of the four masks. He pointed to the four masks present. An angel. Now he pointed to Michael. A yokai. He moved his finger to point to Yasaka. A vampire, a valkyrie. He said seriously. A Juka? I know, but they'd better be spies to be able to control the Sekiryuutei during this war against Albedo. He said. No one could believe what they were hearing. It must have been a bad joke, but it was reality from the look of the current Maya bills above. Cersicius. Although it pains me to say this, but at the moment the Sekiryuutei is our only option, he said seriously, to which those present knew that it was the best thing at this time of war. Seraphal. But you can't do this, she said, as she was against everything she has fought for by becoming mad. Cersicius. It will only be for a while. After stopping Albedo we will tell him the truth, he said seriously. I know it hurts you to use people, but it's the only way out, he said sadly. Athena. I accept the plan of the male Beelzebub, she said seriously. This surprised those present by her words. So someone else against this plan, she said, to which some looked at each other in conflict, but in the end they accepted said plan, even if they have to use a person. Odin did not have anyone in mind for the plan they planned to carry out specifically. This was the same thought for Shemazai and Yasaka. At that moment they began to draw up a peace treaty between the factions and the Sekiryuutei, where Athena signed it, but she saw how Artemis looked at her with a look of sadness. Artemis. You are not alone in this, sister, she said, as she took the pen and signed said treaty. After all, you are no different from the demons. She thought angrily when she saw the face of the leaders of the factions present. At the moment, the devil faction offered in marriage to Latia Astaroth and Sifra Agars. The angel faction offered Morona Shadorova and Elizabeth Lyons, but the vampires offered Valerie Teeps, the bearer of the sacred gear, the Sephiroth Grull. From the Greek faction they offered Athena, Artemis, and finally Nyx. Only the fallen angels, the Iaxes and the Nordic faction were missing, but they were going to discuss that later. For the moment this was enough to make a peace treaty with the Sekiryuutei. The problem now was that Issei do need accept such a contract. Athena. I'm sorry, sister. She apologized to her older sister. But it's the only way to save people, she said with a lowered gaze. Artemis. Don't worry, sister, although I won't like being around a man, she said with annoyance in her tone of voice, but she wasn't referring to Issei. More specifically, she was referring to the males of the DXD group, but she wasn't going to say it out loud. They had to meet with the Sekiryuutei as soon as possible so that the lives of innocents would not be in danger. So tomorrow was going to be the big day for such a meeting. Artemis. Idiots, they are going to meet their own enemy under the same roof. They don't know how I'm going to enjoy this, she thought with a small mocking smile on her face that no one noticed. And Grigori. You could see the DXD group with tired looks, but the ones that stand out the most are Asia Argento, Ravel Phoenix and Sekvara Agars. Those who were in support as Elizabeth Lyons was resting due to the excessive use of her magic. The others had not found anything in recent days, not even a hint of the place where Albedo escaped. Iku? Damn it, we didn't find anything about that bastard, he said angrily, as the Licard had seemed to swallow him. Arthur? I'm not surprised, he said with an expressionless tone, which caught the attention of those present. After all, he is someone who relies on attacking when we least expect it, he said seriously. Why this is happening to us? She said incredulously, to which Arthur simply shook his head. So no. He is right. The factions he attacks is only with the motive of destroying or causing great damage, she said with a thoughtful look. Tsubaki, if we watch Tobio's video, we can say that Albedo and Issei Haido are in different levels of power, she said, to which some grimaced in disgust at the mention of Issei. Saji? That fucker, he said angrily. He's just a human with nothing special, he said with disgust at remembering him. Sona. That human who has been the only one to manage to tie with Albedo, Saji, she said seriously, which annoyed Saji, besides that he is the current Sekiryuutei, the Red Dragon Emperor, he said coldly, to which Saji clenched his fists to remind him that Issei is on top of him. Die. Fucking bastard. Not only is he the center of attention, but he will have the same benefits he enjoyed. He thought angrily, it wasn't fair. When did my brother got strong? She thought sadly, imagining her brother at the top. And in what way can we ask for his help? He asked with curiosity, to which he attracted the attention of those present. Tsubaki. There is only one way, she said seriously. It is with freeing the goddess Nyx, she said, to which those present recalled their demands at the first meeting of the new enemy of the factions. Die. He doesn't understand that releasing her can bring back bad memories for Ingvild, he said coldly. Sona. Sorry for not sharing your same thought, he said seriously, attracting everyone's attention. Is it to save one person or to save 1 million? Tell me which you prefer, he said seriously, leaving Dai silent. Elizabeth only saw the talk with a look of confusion, but inside she was laughing because of the despair on the faces of their group, so she drew a small smile on her face, in that she looked at the look of Dai Haidu, along with the look of Sagi Genshiro. Elizabeth. I can't believe I was so blind before to believe that they were our saviors, she thought with annoyance. For which reason she turned to the other side indifferently. She had no time to waste with them, but in that she observed something that caught her attention, for which she quickly approached Griselda. Elizabeth, Sister Griselda, I have something important to do, she said, to which she drew the attention of Gabriel's queen. Griselda, don't you want someone to accompany you? She said curiously, to which Elizabeth shook her head. Well, you can leave, you've already helped a lot, she said calmly, to then see Elizabeth spread her wings and fly to a specific direction. Britra? That girl did know your intentions at one glance, and apparently from your friend too, he said in Sagi's mind, who was annoyed by the mocking laugh of the Dragon King. Slowly Elizabeth was flying around Gregory until she could see a person searching through the rubble, to which she slowly calmly descended. She was in no hurry to talk to that person. Elizabeth. It's been a while, she said with an expressionless tone in her voice. Don't scare me like that, said the person. Elizabeth. Stop joking. If Master Issei wants to thank you for the information you have collected, she said coldly, while from a pocket dimension she took out a bag full of gold coins. It's what I deserved. You know how difficult it was to know all the information about her, said the person with annoyance. The difficult thing was not to attract attention. Elizabeth, I don't trust you that much, she said coldly. Who knew an angel could speak with that tone? The person asked with a grin. Anyway, tell your teacher that it is possible to attack the Greyzabor organization, the person said, which interested Elizabeth. Elizabeth? It's something interesting, but tell me what is the price of this information? She said with the same tone with which she spoke earlier. I want to make the Sekiryuutei as my contract dragon, the person said with a smile, which annoyed Elizabeth. Maybe you don't know, but having a contract with him can open more doors than you can imagine, and with it comes contacts and information, said, which the latter interested Elizabeth. Elizabeth, what kind of information are we talking about? She said seriously, to which the other person put a hand on the chin. Like forbidden and powerful magic, said, which Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. Imagine being more powerful than ever. Your master is only going to be interested in you and not the other two. Said with a smile, to which Elizabeth couldn't help but show a goofy smile on her face. Elizabeth, to pay attention only to me. She repeated the words of the hooded person. It doesn't sound bad, but I must discuss it with my master, she said seriously. I hope you still keep the pamphlet she gave you, she said seriously. Of course, but you'd better hurry up before the other two beat you, said mockingly, to which Elizabeth just turned around and prepared to leave. Leaving the hooded person to continue with his task of collecting important things from the rubble, the hooded person just let out a heavy sigh. At least your master pays well for the information I give him, said with a smile, as she saw the bag of gold coins in her hands. I'm Skip, territory. Ajuka Beelzebub had a tired look as he enters his family's castle, wondering if he needed to talk to his niece about what was discussed at the meeting. The servant rushed to announce his visit to the astrotheorist, who was the person he wished to see. Things were getting very complicated and Ajuka knew it better than anyone. Uncle, you need something to see me in such a hurry, she said, confused, to which Ajuka just takes a deep breath. Ajuka? Latia, I need to talk to you about something extremely important. It will be best if you sit down, he said seriously, which worried Latia. Latia Astrid, a beautiful almond-eyed girl with long blonde hair with blue tips, as she has a voluptuous body and large breasts, the proportions of which are similar to those of Ria's. She wears a noble dress while holding an elegant folding fan. Athea. Uncle, you are worrying me now, she said with concern. Ajuka. First of all, Athea, I'm really sorry for what I did, he said with an angry look. But I had no choice, it's to keep people safe, he said seriously, which Laicia was confused by her uncle's words. Laicia, uncle. It was the only thing that came out of her lips. Bijuka. But you will be engaged. He finally said it with all the difficulty in the world. This made Latia's eyes open and a look of horror was drawn on the face of the astrotheorist. Latia. What a good joke, uncle, she said without being able to believe it. Bijuka? I'm not kidding, from today you are engaged, she said seriously, which Latia shook her head. Latia? How could you, uncle? She said with sadness. It was difficult to describe how she felt. Is that maybe you don't care about my life? She said with sadness. Bijuka? Forgive me, but it was for the best, he said with difficulty. Alicia, how was this the best thing for me? She asked with anger in every word that came out of her mouth. Now I am engaged by one of your brilliant ideas, she said sadly, as tears came out of her eyes. Bijuka, it's the only solution we found to have the Sekiryuutei on our side, he said, to which he drew the attention of the aforementioned Alicia. It better be a good excuse, she said coldly. At that, Ajuka began to tell her what happened at the last meeting, and as Issei Haidu, the current Sekiryuutei, was the only one to face Albedo. Latia Straff did not know how to feel when she realized that she and other girls became a bargaining chip for protecting the lives of innocent people. Latia, you offered me as if nothing, not only to me, but also to my cousin, she said angrily. Now all that is missing is that the Sekiryuutei accepted said agreement, she said with difficulty in her words, to which Ajuka averted his gaze from his niece. Ajuka? I know it's wrong, but he's the only person who knows how this enemy thinks, he said with difficulty. Alicia. I don't want to see you right now, you'd better leave me alone right now, she said coldly, pointing to the exit. Ajuka knew that it was better to leave her to calm down, for his party felt bad about the decision he had to make. Olympus, Temple of Athena. The goddess Athena was sitting on her throne with a serious look. Apparently the factions agreed with the devil king Beelzebub plan to approach the Sekiryuutei and discover such information from Albedo. Athena? It's just a small price to pay in order to help innocent people. She repeated those words to herself again, but for a moment those words stopped making sense to her. It's that maybe they can't protect themselves. What the hell am I thinking? She quickly shook her head at those words that came out of her lips. She thought that it would be easy for Issei Haidu to accept such an agreement after all the leaders who were talking about him made sure to give him all the useful information that Issei felt jealous for the achievements of his younger brother. Athena, Although I feel a little bad about using it in this way, she said to herself because of that idea that came to her. Albedo attacks has left them in chaos. Well, thinking about all the problems that this contracts to the factions. The memory of the meeting of when Albedo was made known flashed through her mind, but now she didn't seem so hasty to review the video again. Athena. I can do it tomorrow more calmly, she sighed heavily. After all, he's not going anywhere, she said calmly, not noticing that the earrings and necklace sparkled for a few seconds. The next day, hours before the attack on Valerie Lucifer, Elizabeth Lyons is observed with a serious look on her face while she was followed by Gondola and Artemis. Upon arriving at the coordinates given to them by Office Ouroboros, they began to plan the ambush to Valerie with caution so as not to arouse suspicion. Elizabeth. We don't have much time before she shows up. She was referring to Valerie while making a specific point. Artemis. We must finish with her as soon as possible. I have something extremely important to inform you, she said, to which she drew the attention of the aforementioned. Everyone nodded their heads, so all they had to do was wait for their guest. After all, they had a special surprise for her that was going to change her life. Slowly a dimensional gap was opening, to which the three mentioned hid their auras and presences before their guest. They did not want to ruin their surprise. Artemis tensed the string of her bow where a blue arrow appeared slowly. When she saw that someone came out of there, she released the string where the arrow passed next to her guest. The person who was behind Valerie Lucifer was none other than the goddess Artemis herself. Slowly Elizabeth stood on one side of Artemis, an action that was imitated by Gondel. Valerie? What are you doing here? She asked, trying to sound calm, but none of the three believed it. Gondel? Please, Sekiryuutei, don't make it hard for us. We know that you saw my past. Valerie. How did they know that? She asked with disbelief. At this comment the three of them wanted to laugh because of the face that the Sekiryuutei was showing. Artemis. So you haven't noticed, she said with mockery, which you miss, Valerie? You were sent to the future at this time, she said with mockery, which Valerie opened her eyes with surprise. It seems that she didn't believe her, but I couldn't blame her at all. Elizabeth. You're wondering how the Apocalypse Dragon and why he sent Issei to keep you quiet about Issei's plans, she said with a smile, but it was more a tone of irony on her part. Valerie. If I was sent to the future, that means that she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Gandalf. Issei found out about you thanks to Office, who warned him of everything that happened and sent us to deal with you, she said calmly, which Valerie could only do one thing, and that was to fight against the present. I'm Skip. Elizabeth, Gondola and Artemis are observing the body of Valerie Lucifer lying on the cold grass, but it seems that they were not so focused on her. Undull, I managed to seal the White Emperor Dragon's consciousness, so it's not a problem anymore, she said coldly. You will be able to continue using your sacred gear normally, but you will only be able to use your balance breaker. You will no longer be able to use your other forms with Albion's consciousness sealed, she said seriously. Artemis. That doesn't matter here, she said seriously. This is more important than her, she said coldly, to which Elizabeth put a worried look on her face. Elizabeth. Something happened to Master, she said with concern. Artemis. No, was her answer. Those idiots of the leaders are trying to use Issei and fight for them, she said angrily. Donnell frowned upon hearing that Odin agreed with that fool devil brilliant plan. On the other hand, Elizabeth cursed Michael, but Artemis was just laughing. Elizabeth, what makes you laugh so much? She asked seriously, since for her the situation did not provoke any jokes. Artemis. It is that they think that Issei is in their hands, but in reality it is the opposite, she said mockingly. They are now in the hands of our master, she said with a mocking tone, which caused each one to draw a smile since Artemis was right. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.